The elevator at Morgan Technologies felt smaller than usual as I stood next to David, my ex-husband of 2 years, watching the numbers climb to the executive floor. He was wearing his trademark smug smile, the one that had once charmed me but now made my stomach turn. "You're looking tired, Rebecca," he said, eyeing my simple black blazer and laptop bag. "Consulting work must be rough these days. My name is Rebecca Chen, and at 38, I was about to teach my ex-husband the most expensive lesson of his life. He just didn't know it yet. Actually, business is great," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "But then you wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Too busy planning your wedding to my former best friend." His smile widened. "Ah yes, Emma mentioned she ran into you at the country club last week. She felt terrible about, well, everything. But you know how these things happen. The heart wants what it wants." What the heart wanted, apparently, was to sleep with my best friend while we were still married, divorce me claiming irreconcilable differences, and then orchestrate my removal from the company we'd built together. The elevator dinged at the 45th floor. "Well, this is me," David said, straightening his Italian silk tie. "Board meeting. You know how it is. Oh wait, you don't anymore, do you? Since you gave up your shares in the divorce." "Gave up my shares." That's how he framed it, as if I'd had a choice. The truth was, he'd manipulated everything. The timing of the divorce, the evidence of my supposed mismanagement of company funds, the board's sudden loss of confidence in me. By the time I realized what was happening, I was out of both my marriage and my position as chief strategy officer. "Good luck with the meeting," I said, smiling slightly. "I'm sure it will be illuminating." He gave me a curious look but stepped out of the elevator. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of Emma waiting for him, wearing a dress that cost more than most people's monthly salary. She at least had the decency to look uncomfortable when she saw me. I waited until the elevator started moving again before pulling out my phone and sending a text to Marcus, my lawyer. "Everything ready?" His response was immediate. "All set. Phillips Jensen representatives are in place. Board doesn't suspect a thing." Perfect. 2 years of careful planning were about to pay off. When David forced me out of Morgan Technologies, he thought he was dealing with a heartbroken woman who would quietly accept defeat. What he didn't realize was that he created something far more dangerous, a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. I'd started my consulting firm as a cover, taking small clients while I worked on my real project, building relationships with Phillips Jensen, one of the largest private equity firms in the country. They'd been watching Morgan Technologies for years, waiting for the right moment to make a move. I gave them that moment, along with detailed inside knowledge of the company's workings, its weaknesses, and most importantly, its true value. The deal we structured was beautiful in its simplicity. Phillips Jensen would acquire Morgan Technologies through a leveraged buyout, and I would be installed as CEO. The purchase price? $2.3 billion. The look that would be on David's face when he realized his ex-wife now owned his company. Priceless. My phone buzzed again, this time a message from Emma. "Can we talk? Please, before the board meeting." I considered ignoring it, but curiosity won out. Starbucks across the street, 15 minutes. The coffee shop was quiet for a Monday morning. Emma was already there when I arrived, fidgeting with her massive engagement ring. The one David had bought her with company money, I was sure. "Rebecca," she said, standing up as I approached. "Thank you for meeting me. I know you probably hate me. Hate requires energy I'm not willing to waste on you," I interrupted, sitting down. "What do you want, Emma?" She looked taken aback by my directness. The Emma I'd known for 15 years, my maid of honor, my confidant, my supposed best friend, had always been able to smooth over any situation with charm and sweet words. I wanted to explain. About David, about everything. "Let me guess," I cut in. "It just happened. You never meant to hurt me. You fought your feelings but couldn't help falling in love. Did I miss anything?" She flushed. "It wasn't like that. David, he can be very persuasive when he wants something. Oh, I remember. He persuaded me to marry him, to invest my inheritance in his company, to trust him with everything. And then he persuaded the board that I was incompetent, persuaded our friends that I was unstable, persuaded you that betraying me was justified. The board meeting today," she said, changing tactics. "David's announcing some big changes to the company. He wants to take it in a new direction." I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make her flinch. Is that why you really wanted to meet? To pump me for information about the board meeting? No. I know you still have connections in the industry. I thought maybe you'd heard something. Heard something. I raised an eyebrow. Like what? Like Phillips Jensen acquiring Morgan Technologies? Like the entire board being replaced? Like your fiancé losing control of his company? The color drained from her face. What are you talking about? I stood up, smoothing my blazer. You should get back to the office, Emma. Wouldn't want to be late for the board meeting. I hear it's going to be quite interesting. Rebecca, wait, she called after me. What do you know? I turned back, giving her my sweetest smile. Just that Karma, like David, can be very persuasive when she wants something. The next hour passed in a blur of final preparations. Marcus sent confirmation that all the paperwork was in order. Phillips Jensen's representatives were in position. The security team had been briefed on the coming changes. I stood in front of the mirror in my temporary office across the street, checking my appearance one last time. The simple black blazer was gone, replaced by a perfectly tailored Chanel suit. My hair was elegantly styled, my makeup flawless. Time to look the part of a CEO. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Why are Phillips Jensen executives at our board meeting? What did you do? I smiled at my reflection, thinking of all the times he'd underestimated me, dismissed me, tried to make me feel small. Those days were over. On my way, I texted back. Wouldn't want to miss your big announcement. The Morgan Technologies boardroom hadn't changed in 2 years. The same mahogany table gleamed under recessed lighting. The same leather chairs surrounded it. The same city skyline spread out beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. But this time, I wasn't walking in as David's wife or the disgraced former CSO. I was walking in as the new owner. The room fell silent as I entered. David stood at the head of the table, his face a mask of confusion and growing anger. Emma sat to his right, nervously twisting her engagement ring. The board members, all of them David's carefully chosen allies, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Rebecca, David said, his voice tight. This is a closed board meeting. You're not authorized to be here. Actually, I replied, setting my briefcase on the table, I'm exactly where I need to be. I nodded to Marcus, who stood up from his place among the Phillips Jensen executives. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus announced, distributing folders to everyone present. As of 9 o'clock this morning, Phillips Jensen has completed its acquisition of Morgan Technologies. The paperwork has been filed and the transfer of ownership is legally binding. David snatched up one of the folders, his hands shaking slightly as he read. This is impossible. The board would have to approve any sale. The board's approval wasn't necessary. I cut in smoothly. Phillips Jensen acquired controlling interest through a series of strategic stock purchases over the past 18 months. Quite legal, I assure you. Strategic stock purchases? David's face reddened. Those shares were tied up in holding companies, family trusts. Yes, they were. I agreed. Until your creative accounting practices forced several of those entities to liquidate their holdings. Phillips Jensen was happy to buy them up, at very favorable prices, I might add. Emma stood up, her voice trembling. David, what's she talking about? I turned to her, feeling a flicker of satisfaction at her distress. He's been moving money around, Emma, cooking the books to hide personal expenses, inflating profits to keep the stock price up. The kind of things that interest the SEC very much. That's a lie. David slammed his hand on the table. This is just another attempt to what? I interrupted. To expose your fraudulent practices, to protect the company you nearly destroyed, to ensure justice is served. Yes to all of the above. Marcus cleared his throat. If you'll turn to page 3 of your packets, you'll find the terms of the new management structure. Ms. Chen will be assuming the role of CEO, effective immediately. The boardroom erupted in chaos. Board members talking over each other. David shouting about lawsuits and injunctions. Emma crying quietly in her chair. I remained standing calmly at the end of the table, watching it all unfold. This is my company. David's voice rose above the din. You can't just walk in here and... It's not your company anymore, I said quietly, but somehow my voice cut through the noise. You lost it the moment you decided that rules didn't apply to you. That loyalty meant nothing. That people were disposable. I turned to address the board members. Those of you who weren't involved in David's financial misconduct are welcome to stay, pending review. The rest of you should clear out your offices by the end of the day. Security will supervise." David took a step toward me, his face contorted with rage. "You vindictive bitch. You planned this all along." Two security guards appeared at the doorway. I hadn't needed to signal them. Everything had been carefully choreographed in advance. "Mr. Morgan," one of them said firmly, "please come with us. We'll help you pack your office." As they led him away, still shouting threats and accusations, Emma approached me. Her mascara was running, her perfect composure shattered. "Did you know?" I asked her quietly, "about the fraud, the hidden accounts?" She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. I didn't want to know. It was easier to believe, to think, that I was the problem, that I deserved what happened. I studied her face, the face of the woman I'd once trusted more than anyone except David. You know what the funny thing is? If either of you had just been honest, just admitted to the affair and handled things with integrity, none of this would have happened. What do you mean? I would have been hurt, yes. Angry, definitely. But I would have signed the divorce papers, kept my shares, and moved on. Instead, you both chose deception. And that choice led us here. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Security escorted David and several board members from the building. HR began processing termination paperwork. The Phillips Jensen team started their audit of the company's books. By late afternoon, I finally had a moment alone in what was now my office, David's former corner suite with its spectacular view of the city. Emma had left hours ago, her dreams of being Mrs. Morgan and a company director shattered in a single morning. My phone buzzed with a text from David. "This isn't over. You won't get away with this." I smiled, thinking of the SEC investigation that would be announced tomorrow. The evidence of his financial crimes carefully documented and ready to be revealed. "It is over, David," I texted back. "The only question is whether you'll face the consequences with dignity or make things worse for yourself." Marcus came in with a bottle of champagne. "Congratulations, CEO Chen. Phase 1 is complete." I accepted a glass, watching the bubbles rise. "How's the initial audit looking?" "About as bad as we expected. He's been playing fast and loose with the books for years. The SEC will have a field day. And the legitimate parts of the business. Solid foundation, good products, talented staff. Once we clean house and implement proper controls, Morgan Technologies, or whatever you decide to rename it, will be stronger than ever." I walked to the window, looking out at the city spread below. You know what the strangest part is? I didn't do this for revenge. Not really. I did it because this company deserves better than what David turned it into. The employees deserve better. "Speaking of employees," Marcus said, checking his phone, "the all-staff email about the change in ownership just went out. Your inbox is probably exploding." I sat down at my new desk, sleek, modern, nothing like David's ostentatious mahogany monstrosity, and opened my laptop. Hundreds of emails were already pouring in, many from employees I'd known during my previous time with the company. One in particular caught my eye, from Janet, my former assistant who David had fired shortly after forcing me out. "Welcome back, boss. The real Morgan Technologies has missed you." That evening, as I was preparing to leave, I found Emma waiting by my car in the parking garage. She cleaned up her makeup, but her eyes were still red from crying. "He's been arrested," she said without preamble. "The SEC, they took him from his house an hour ago." I nodded. "I know. The evidence was too strong to ignore once it was properly presented to them." "Did you ever love him?" she asked suddenly. "Really love him, I mean." I thought about it carefully. I loved who I thought he was, just like I loved who I thought you were. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just destroy relationships. It destroys the memories of what those relationships used to be. She wiped fresh tears from her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Rebecca, for everything." "I know you are," I said, unlocking my car. "But sorry doesn't fix what's broken. It just acknowledges the damage. What matters is what we learn from it." "And what did you learn?" I looked at her, really looked at her, seeing not the friend who betrayed me or the woman who stole my husband, but just a person who had made terrible choices and was beginning to face the consequences. "I learned that true strength isn't about getting revenge," I said finally. "It's about rebuilding something better from the ashes of what was destroyed. That's what I'm going to do with this company. That's what you'll have to do with your life now. As I drove home that night, my phone buzzed with another message from David, this time from his lawyer's office. We can make a deal. Just tell the SEC to back off. I deleted it without responding. Some people never learn, but that wasn't my problem anymore. I had a company to run, employees to protect, and a future to build. The next morning, I walked into Morgan Technologies, soon to be renamed Phoenix Industries, as its CEO. The security guard smiled and nodded. Employees greeted me warmly in the elevator, and Janet was waiting at my office with a coffee and a stack of reports. "Ready to change the world, boss?" she asked with a grin. I sat down at my desk, looking out at the city where I'd lost everything and gained something better. "Ready," I replied. "Let's build something that makes us proud."